What's up, comic book fans? This is Pete from Comic Books Transformed, where we talk about your favorite TV shows and movies that have been adapted from your favorite comic books. And today I'm throwing you a little curveball. That's not Brian over there. That's my other co host, life partner, Mr. Danny Torkel. Danny, welcome to Comic Books Transformed.
What's up? Pleasure to
Danny,
be back.
thank you. I am always excited to have you on the channel. Danny came on a couple months ago to talk about Raised by Wolves, which was a great sci-fi show on HBO Max. We both were fans. We would review it. We'd get views. We'd get people commenting. It was a great time for this channel. And then HBO Max canceled it. So that was fun. But today we are here to talk about The Peripheral, which is a sci-fi show that's put out by Amazon Prime. So far, there's been 3 episodes released as of this recording, and it is based on a William Gibson novel. Danny, have you ever heard of William Gibson before?
Uh, I don't know him by name. If there's other works by him that have been adapted, then maybe, but no.
Yeah. I don't think that any of his literature has been adapted into like a feature film or TV show, as far as I know. I know that he wrote the original script for Alien 3 and they completely changed it, right? And he wrote a book called I mean, he's written many books, but probably his most famous is Neuromancer, which is one of those books that's a big inspiration for The Matrix.
Oh, all
And
right, cool.
he also kind of came up with the idea of the internet before the internet was a thing, you know?
Oh, well, that's pretty good. I thought Al Gore came up with the internet.
Maybe together, they had some smokes and they're like, hey, what about this internet thing? Um, but anyway, there's 3 episodes in. Chloe Grace Moretz. Are you a fan of her as an actress?
I like her a lot. Really, she's kick-ass, right?
She's Hit Girl in Kick Ass, yes.
Yes. I really enjoyed her in Kick-Ass, and I thought I remember thinking when they were going to remake Carrie, I remember thinking, "Oh, she's going to be really good." And then that whole movie was just so bad. And I don't blame her at all. Um it probably was bad casting though, it just in the sense that in the book Carrie's such like an awkward uh young girl, and Chloe Grace Moretz is anything but awkward. Now that she's 25 years old, I feel comfortable saying she's rather beautiful,
Yes.
without feeling like creepy and weird. Uh, I did have to look that up before. I was like, wow, she's really pretty. Wait, she was a kid star. Let me look this up. Okay, good.
Right.
But yeah, I do like her. I think she's really good in this show.
Yeah.
I like it. I like that her look is just slightly altered between like 2032 Flynn and Peripheral Flynn in the future.
Right.
I like that aspect of it. The cast is good. I pretty much like most of the people in the cast.
Right.
3 episodes in, and I need more Tanaya Miller.
Yeah.
I love. I mean, we're the we have our channel, the Lasser Cast, and we know Tanaya Miller from The Haunting of Bly Manor,
Yes.
where she was one of the standout characters on a show filled with them, and I love her. I think she's going to be in the next Flanagan project. I think she's cast in House of the Fall of Usher.
Oh,
No,
cool.
Fall of the House of Usher, House of the Fall of Usher.
It's all right. Yeah.
Yeah, I think she's cast in that.
Yeah.
But I loved her in Bly Manor, and she is deliciously evil so far in this show.
Right.
And I just need more of that because she's like my favorite character so far, and it's just because I love her, and she has like 2 scenes that I think are 2 of the most standout scenes so far.
Yes.
In the whole series. Yeah. You asked me about Chloe Grace Moretz, and now I'm ranting about Tanaya Miller. So
it's okay. When I do these discussions with Brian, usually when we first start a new show, I talk a lot about the background, and I'm glad that you're bringing up the actresses that are in the show. One person I wanted to talk about too was Jack Reynor, who's one of the actors in the show.
Love
He
Jack
plays Chloe Grace Moretz's brother. Her name's Flynn Fisher, and then he is Burton Fisher. Jack Reynor, Brian, when I was telling him about the show, Brian sort of got disgusted. He wasn't a fan because his only exposure to Jack Reynor
Christian?
was Transformers Age of Extinction.
Oh my goodness. I think I had given up on the Transformers franchise by that point.
You made a good call. He has a standout scene where he's dating this younger actress, and he pulls out this card that's the Romeo and Juliet clause that explains
that that's him?
That's him in that movie.
Oh, I did see that one. Oh,
yes.
That's wow.
Yes. But I feel like he's redeemed himself in film since then. He's in this movie I love called Sing Street. He's really good in that.
Yeah, that's where I knew him from. He's and it's funny because he's also obviously he is Christian of the bear suit in Midsummer. He is like the most maligned character, one of the most maligned characters in modern horror history. Like I think feminists like get together and watch his death scene in Midsummer. Even though he was drugged and kind of raped. But to me, and it's funny because he's the big brother in this show. He is, because of Sing Street, I just look at Jack Reynor as like the big brother. I loved him. Sing Street is one of my all-time favorite movies. You wouldn't think that horror fan Danny, who like loves all things horror and sci-fi, you give me a good movie musical and I'm like down for it. And Sing Street is one of my all-time favorite movies.
Yes.
I sometimes when I would run, I would listen to the songs from that movie.
Drive It Like You Stole It.
Drive It Like You Stole It. What was the one with the model? Run.
Oh yeah, I can't remember, man. I just remember Drive It Like You Stole It because it's so catchy.
Yeah.
But it does have a fantastic soundtrack.
The rhythm of the model.
The rhythm of the model. Yeah. Oh my God.
But yeah, he's like such a great big brother in that movie. And I think their father in that movie is Littlefinger.
Littlefinger, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. All right, now we're going off on Sing Street.
All these tangents, yeah.
Yeah.
I figured since we're covering the actors, I wanted to cover two more actors while we're in this discussion. For me, there's one character that when he comes on, he just steals the show. And that is oh damn, I thought I had his name written down here. He's the guy that played Cassius Clay in the movie of One Time in Miami. Oh, here I go. Okay, so his name is Eli Gorey, and he plays Connor Penske on the show.
Oh yes,
he's missing.
Really good.
Yeah, he's missing 2 legs and he's missing his arm. And he's this vet, just like the rest of the other guys. And he has this sort of futurized because even the past portion of the show is our future. And he's driving around this sort of wheelchair that can also kind of become a car. I feel like he's just the standout character when he comes on the show.
He's really good. He's really good. And also, I like Gary Carr, the actor who plays Wilf.
Right. He's great. The future stuff doesn't get me as much as the like more present day stuff. But one other actor that I thought stands out too is Louis Herthun.
Oh, he's the uncle.
Corbel Pickett. Yeah. And so he's actually from Westworld. I was like, where's he from? And it makes sense that he's from Westworld because the producers on this show are the producers of Westworld.
Oh, okay.
Christopher Nolan's brother, Jonathan Nolan, he did that CBS show Person of Interest. He did Westworld, and now he's done this show too.
Okay. I know that the guy who created this show, Scott B. Smith, he really cool horror movie, The Ruins. He wrote the book, and I've always been told that the book is better than the movie, but he also wrote the screenplay for the movie, and I really like the movie. It's gross. There are some sick scenes in that. Yes. Jenna Malone is one of my favorite actresses. And she's done horror work. She's done, non-horror work. I thought she should have gotten an Oscar nomination for The Neon Demon, which she was phenomenal in.
Fantastic drop there, yeah.
He also has an Academy Award nomination for writing A Simple Plan, which was a Sam Raimi movie back in like the late 90s.
Love that movie.
Yeah, it's weird. He's an author. I know he's a writer because his IMDb is actually not that much. He only has like 6 writing credits.
Right.
And a couple of them are like transferring his own novels to screenplays.
Yes.
So it's interesting that he would get so interested in this, William Gibson story that he would want to take it and create it and write for the screenplays for the episodes.
I agree. I completely agree. And I got the book for this in anticipation of watching the show. And I have to say that, often I listen to audiobooks when I'm driving to work. And I knew that William Gibson doesn't hold your hand. I knew that he just like throws you into this world and you're supposed to kind of figure out what's going on. And I was pretty confused reading the book. I was pretty confused watching the first episode of this show. But by the third episode, I was like, okay, I understand how this works. And I wanted to bring up one last behind the scenes detail before we jump into like reviewing it and talking about it. But the pilot and the second episode are directed by Vincenzo Natali. And Vincenzo, I really want to try to get him on the Lasser cast because his filmography is like super interesting to me. He's done Cube, which I've never seen, but I know that's like a cult classic. Splice, which I'm a very big fan of Splice. I feel like that's a movie that nobody really talks about.
I feel like I just saw somebody talking about Cube as like a precursor to Saw.
Okay, yes.
I don't know where I saw that. Like, but
probably Twitter.
and like when you think about it, it kind of does feel like a futuristic version of like a Saw trap game. Yeah, it's very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, this guy obviously has his horror chops, right? Because besides those movies, he's directed other movies too, but he's also directed a lot of TV shows. And those shows include like Hannibal, The Returned, Orphan Black, The Strain. The Strain, which that's Guillermo del Toro.
I love The Strain. Athena and I watched that whole series. It was really good.
Right, and he was one of the directors on it. He also did Luke Cage. He directed an episode of Westworld, American Gods, the Netflix Lost in Space, and then a show that you and I have covered on the Lasser cast, The Stand. He also directed an episode of that. So what makes me excited about him and want to get him on our show is because he also directed the second episode of Cabinet of Curiosities, which you were just raving about a couple minutes ago.
Yeah, sorry if I look distracted. I'm literally just watching one of my cats do like cat things where she just sits on top and knocks literally everything on a table off of it one by one. And I'm just like, you've got to be kidding me. But yeah, the second episode of Cabinet of Curiosities on Netflix is called Graveyard Rats, I believe.
Correct.
And I am, and I've said this on the Lasser cast before, I'm an unabashed supporter of Stephen King's Graveyard Shift, which is widely considered to be one of the worst movies based on his work.
Right.
And that episode feels like a loving homage to Stephen King's Graveyard Shift with giant rat monsters and just tons. It felt like H.P. Lovecraft meets Stephen King's Graveyard Shift, and I loved every part of that episode. So Vincenzo Natali's he's very interesting. He does a lot of horror, but then he does a lot of sci-fi, and he's really good at blending the two. So I feel like
a
he's
genre
perfect.
guy.
Yeah, he's perfect to work on both The Peripheral and Guillermo del Toro's Cabinets of Curiosity. Or is it Cabinet of Curiosities?
I think it's Cabinet of Curiosities, yes.
Okay, one of them is pluralized, not both. Okay.
Right. So with all that being said, this is all the people behind the scenes and the actors that are in front of the camera. Let's talk about what the actual idea of this show is. And I took a blurb from the Wikipedia where this journalist from GQ, Zach Barron, he wrote this: "The Peripheral is an emphatic return to the science fiction he ceased to write after the turn of this century," meaning William Gibson, "set in not one but two futures, not far off from our own present day, takes place in a Winter's Bone-ish world where the only industries still surviving are lightly evolved versions of Walmart and the meth trade. The second future is set further along in time after a series of not quite cataclysmic events that have killed off most of the world's population, leaving behind a monarchic class of gangsters, performance artists, and publicists in an otherwise deserted London. So I tripped up a little bit saying that, but I felt like I didn't understand the show in the first episode, but I feel like that quote really kind of explains it all, really. I think the only thing that's kind of missing from that is the description of what the peripheral is. And
Yeah.
do you, after watching 3 episodes, kind of understand what a peripheral is?
So, and feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. One of the things that I said to you before we started recording is I'm not sure exactly how I feel about this show yet after 3 episodes. I like it. I definitely don't love it yet, but I feel like I could love it based on, like, at the end of part 3, at the end of episode 3, they show, like, on the next episode of The Peripheral, and I'm like, holy shit, that looks like the stuff I'm really going to get into.
Right.
When we reviewed Raised by Wolves on this channel, that was the type of sci-fi that just grabbed me from the first, like, almost 5 minutes of the first episode. And I was just in. And I like threw myself into that world. It's a little tougher to get into this one. And maybe it's because it's not just one world, it's 2 worlds.
Agreed.
And because of that, there's double the amount of characters. And but from what I've gathered, a peripheral is like in the far off future, which is around the year 2100. It's like a cyborg that when you in the near future, like 2032, when you put on these, it's like a simulation style like headset that you think you're going into a video game. Your mind and soul, your mind is transferred, and the way you look is transferred into this futuristic cyborg called a peripheral, and you take the form of it, and you can walk around and be a part of the far off future, and it's real. It's not a video game. At first, our characters, Burton and Flynn, think that it is a video game or a simulation.
Right.
But it's actually basically a view into the actual future where you get to take part in the future. It's almost a form of time travel, without there being, a time machine element to it.
Right.
Which I do like. I like that aspect, because whenever you get into time travel, there's always countless paradoxes. Like, we all love Back to the Future, and we all love the Terminator movies, the first 2. But if any conversation of those franchises or time travel in general, you always end up slipping over paradoxes. Whereas here, your body stays in 2032. She's sitting in like a ramshackle trailer in the woods.
Yeah. Right.
But her mind is transported into the body of a like cyborg, an advanced cyborg in the far off future, where she's able to walk around, experience that near deserted London, meet these new characters who have missions for her, and there's you will get more into the plot about, this missing woman and people who are being sent, people from the future who are hiring people from the past to kill her and her family.
Right.
But I think that's what a peripheral is. It's that futuristic cyborg that your mind takes control of in the future.
Yes. No, you got it right in one. Good job. Yeah. I feel like with modern media, because, TV and movies are always sort of a step behind comic books and novels, right? Comic books and novels are always a bit more advanced, and then, TV and movies catch up. With movies and TV now, they're really going head on into the idea of like the multiverse And when they talk about time travel, it doesn't become, let's go back in time so we can change our present, kind of like Terminator or like other, I don't know, time, like Back to the Future, like you said. It now becomes, let's go back in time and we're going to create another timeline, but we're going to get something that we need for our current time. And that's, I think, the most watched version of this story currently is Endgame by Avengers, right? Let's go back in time, get the Infinity Stones. We're going to kind of fuck up these other timelines to get the Infinity Stones, but it's not going to change our past. It's just going to help us in the present day. And so I like that concept a lot. I like the idea of like, you can't just go back in time and change the past. In this case, they're trying to get information about this missing woman, and like what's going on with this organization. But spoilers, first off, right? Because we already started to reveal things. In the first episode, you think that it's just this advanced virtual reality. By the second episode, you find out that there is time travel, but it's a very realistic version of time travel. It's like information from the past is being sent towards the future and vice versa. There's not like a physical person being transported. So I think that's really interesting. Yeah.
But it's also interesting that she can bring things back from the future, right? Because doesn't she bring back the medicine?
I thought she brought back like the information about it and then went to the pharmacy and got this specific.
Oh, okay. Yeah. That part I might have been a little iffy on. Okay, yeah, because that makes a lot more sense. Can I just mention also one of my favorite things of this show that I hope they really get into a lot more is the architecture of London in the future.
Yes.
Where in like 2100 London, they have taken to building gigantic versions of like classical Greek and Roman sculptures into the buildings. Mm-hmm. So it's like you'll be looking at a skyscraper, but the skyscraper is built on top of this classical Greek statue. Yeah. And it is just fascinating to look at. Yep. I want to see more of it. Yes. It's the type of thing that I was just at Comic-Con. If I saw like an artist do that as a painting, I would have bought it and put up on my wall. Yeah. It's just absolutely beautiful art, like whether it's artwork or the special effects obviously used to set that up. Yeah, look great, and I can't wait to see more of that as the season goes on.
Right. Well, that kind of brings up a real interesting point, right? The future obviously doesn't exist, right? We only have what we have in the present. And so any kind of talk about the future becomes speculation. And, with movies and stuff, people have these kind of far out there ideas and they'll get concept artists to draw these amazing futures. But a lot of the times it doesn't necessarily mean that our present is like lining up and leading towards that. It's just kind of like this cool future that everyone's kind of envisioning. Like, wouldn't it be cool if we had flying cars or, if we could predict murders, all these kind of fun, far out there things. One of my favorite types of genre fiction is the near future where it's like, this is kind of what we're leading towards and it makes sense that this is what would be next. And when they do the stuff that's in the present day of the show, like the 2032 stuff, all of that looks like that's just like 2
not
years
too
from
far.
now.
Yeah,
right.
That I agree with. And I know you. I'm pretty sure you just hinted at Minority Report.
Yeah.
And Minority Report was they. I don't know if you watched it when they had one season of a TV show. No. I was reviewing it for Geeks of Doom, and I really liked it. I didn't think I thought they kind of made it too much of like a TV show,
procedural,
where there's attractive leads and it's going in, and they didn't spend enough time on the actual plot of Minority Report, which I think is low key one of Spielberg's best movies.
Right.
I feel like he obviously took over at the end of AI for Kubrick.
Yeah.
And I feel like in many ways, Minority Report was his most Kubrick film. And it's got some of my favorite performances. One of my favorite Tom Cruise performances. But yeah, like I felt watching that, and even when it came out in the in the early 2000s, I was like, I could see that being a future in like 2040.
Yeah.
You know,
Yes.
and to take it back to the Peripheral, I agree with you. Like the tech that we see for 2032, even though it is very advanced, and even though it involves like implanting tech into your body, I don't see that as that big of a leap anymore.
Not at
Like
all.
I've resigned the fact that Back to the Future 2 isn't going to happen. We're not going to have flying cars and self-tying shoelaces, even though they tried making them, and hoverboards. But
Yes.
like, you watch people and the addictions to technology, handheld technology. Instead of a cell phone where we have to do everything like this, why not just install it as a chip in our brain and allow us to access it on, it doesn't feel very far off.
Not at all. Not at all. And I mean, there are some really interesting concepts that get born out of this, right? Like I think you kind of mentioned the haptics already. That's a big part of episode 2, and it's a kind of a big part of episode 3 too, which is the brother Burton. He was part of this military unit where they experimented on them, and they put these like cords or whatever in under their skin, and essentially it's where everyone that's in the military unit can operate as one. And I've kind of played with that idea for my own kind of stories I've wanted to write. I know that there are books like that too, where everyone's kind of this shared hive mind. And it's done really, really well in that second episode, where mercenaries are sent. Essentially, the people in the future that are working for, the doctor in the future, the woman from Bly Manor.
Charisse is her name.
Charisse in the show, she's Charisse. Okay, so Charisse pays people from the past to go hunt down, Flynn and her brother. And these mercenaries show up. You think they're going to be a big deal, but then Burton and his friends just start using those fucking haptics and they just take out the guys like
that's
that.
what they're called, right? The haptics.
Haptics. Yeah.
What another thing, and this is like a socio-political thing that the show does, is the way it talks about the military and how the soldiers are basically exploited. They put this tech, the haptics, into their body, but then you look at the soldiers that we see in the show, who are obviously incredible soldiers. I mean, they take out these mercenaries in episode 2 almost. I don't think they lose a guy.
No, they don't.
And who are these guys? You'd think that they would be like congressmen by this point, and they're basically a bunch of drunks who get together around campfires in the woods of Appalachia, where there's like rusted trailers in the backyard. Half of them work for criminals and do like drug-related crimes just to make money to like pay off medical bills. It's really a depressing look at like how we treat our veterans. And I'd be interested to know if either William Gibson or Scott B. Smith was in the military or like has some kind of connection to that, because like the idea of like this like that idea again, like you said, it's been done in various ways where you always see these like even we're on comic books transform now. Like this was kind of like the plot of Iron Man 3. Right?
Yes.
Like where you have these like military veterans who have been they've been given advanced technology with the idea that they're going to become super soldiers, but then it ends up backfiring and killing them in horrible ways. That was like the whole extremis idea. So like this idea continues to come up in fiction where, and to me, it's really a parable of how the U.S. treats its veterans. And, obviously, all you got to do is a Google search to see the number of veterans living in poverty, living homeless, addicted to painkillers, addicted to substances. And to me, this show does a really good job of showing that, even in the future, that's probably not going to change much.
Yes, yes. And one of my favorite things about this sort of bleak future is that it doesn't really like beat you over the head of like, oh, look how bad the future is. It's just you just sort of draw those conclusions. The plot is happening, and you just kind of draw the conclusions based on what's in the periphery, right? Of like, oh, I see this thing in the background. Okay, so okay, in the future, our future, there's going to be like 3D printing shops, and you're going to just basically 3D print stuff. It's almost like FedEx Kinkos, but then things are just going to be 3D printed for you, right?
Yeah.
And it's going to be very difficult to get medicine that you need. And there's going to be this sort of like big, gigantic pharmacies that you have to go to get things that you need. And of course, like you said, they experimented on these military recruits. And one of the parts I really liked about that, we kind of touched upon this a little bit, but Burton was saying that the military would go to these rural towns and try to find people that were susceptible to wanting to be a part of this, to be experimented on. And they also were looking for people that were already in groups of friends so that when they had the haptics, it would more naturally work for them to be like a unit
which
together.
which obviously you can make connections to, at least the first part you said about Tuskegee and the way that poor and minorities had been like coaxed into the military in the past.
Yeah.
Definitely. And the soldier, the actor that you were talking about, who's that really cool character, Connor, he's African American.
Yeah.
And he's the one who he's missing 3 limbs. They have like a great scene where like you could tell they're so close, that this group of friends is so close that Burton is essentially mocking him, but like with puns, like you don't have a leg to stand on.
Right.
Why don't you give me a hand?
Right.
And he's
Right.
like, he's making all of these pun jokes about his missing limbs.
Right.
And they're kind of laughing about it together because that's the bond that they have.
Yeah.
One of the things we kind of completely skipped over, and I got to be honest, I think this is my biggest issue with the show.
Go ahead.
Is the whole reason why things are happening. Okay. And so the first time Chloe Grace Moretz, Flynn, puts on the, what is it? Is it called something, or is it just the sim?
No, fuck, I can't remember the name. It's like the harness or something. It's not that though. It's something like that. The rig,
well, she
the
puts
harness.
On this like headset, simulator that she thinks is a video game. And at first, and this is really weird, she's her brother.
Right, right.
Because it was made originally for him.
Correct.
So she is in the body of her brother, and her brother picks up this woman at a club. Right. Which leads to a makeout session in the back of a limo. Yeah. Which leads to an eye transfer scene, which is real gross.
That was intense, man.
Yeah.
Real intense.
And the woman who is conducting the eye transfer scene is
Alita.
Alita.
Yeah.
And Alita is kind of the glue that holds everything together.
Yeah.
Of this show. She's she's the character who in the future everybody is after, and Charisse is sending these killers and trying to pay off these murderers to kill Flynn, Burton, and their whole family because they met Alita in the simulator.
Right, right.
And they're the last ones to see Alita.
Yes.
But I feel like this is where the show needs to really do some cleanup because we're 3 episodes in and I don't know enough about Alita to know why the other characters are being shot at or why people are being hired to kill these characters. We've only really gotten that one scene with Alita where she does the eye transfer, very Stanley Kubrick Minority Report.
Yeah.
She basically, or Clockwork Orange, where they rip out Jack Raynor's eye and replace it with another one that he can get into this building.
Yes.
And you kind of, that scene in that, it's still the first episode, right?
Correct.
That scene kind of reminded me of like real futuristic stuff. Did you ever see the Charlie Sheen alien movie, The Arrival?
I have not. I know what you're talking about, though. I have not.
So there was this really good guy. I know Charlie Sheen is off the deep end today, but
Right.
mid 90s, he did a really cool science fiction alien invasion movie called The Arrival.
Arrival,
And
yeah.
that scene where Jack Reynor, where it's Chloe Grace, it's Flynn in Burton's body in the Peripheral. They're going down this elevator, and there's just like 100 levels below. That felt very similar to The Arrival,
Okay.
where like Charlie Sheen got into an elevator and it goes all the way down, and you see where like the aliens have built up this massive underground lair.
Yeah.
So that felt like it was going to be such a huge deal, and it might be later on, but then after that one scene, we haven't been back to that. And so the idea of like, who is Alita? We need to get back to Alita. Okay, let's get back to her, because I need to know more about her and this character.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with you on that, because honestly, the more you talk about that first episode, the more I realize I've sort of detached from that first episode, and that 2 and 3 are almost like a separate story from that very first episode.
Yeah.
Because like I said, I read the book, but I didn't really understand. I didn't read the book. I listened to like about an hour's worth of the book so far, and I didn't really understand what was going on. And then I watched that first episode, and you're under the impression that, oh, this is just like a more advanced virtual reality game. There's probably going to be some sadistic stuff. This is probably going to be about people doing messed up things in virtual reality. And that's what it seems like at first. But then you find out in episode 2, it's people from the future. And, I was sitting there just thinking that this is a woman that is part of some kind of sadistic group in the future, and this is all just virtual reality. It's not a real tangible thing. And so I wasn't really paying that much attention. And I think I need to go back and watch that first episode again, because it's like, why the hell do they have to rip out their eyeball in the future then? Like, what's up with that? What's up with all that stuff you see in the elevator when they're going down there? I have no idea. I'm sure people that have read the book could answer for me. But
it was to the point where I think there's like a moment at the end of the first episode where they're like, we need Alita. And it's supposed to be this like big line. And my response was, who?
Who the fuck is Alita?
Yeah. And I'm like, is this tying into Robert Rodriguez's Alita Battle Angel? Because I could go for a sequel for that.
Right. Well, I'm really, really glad that you brought that up, because I feel like some of the name choices are sort of apropos, right? Alita, Battle Angel, they're looking for Alita. Then Chloe Grace Moretz is Flynn, and Flynn is the name of what's his face in Tron, the main character in Tron. So it's like, obviously there's these references to like virtual reality and like robot stuff in this story too. But when you're watching that first episode, you just think it's a fucking video game, because she's talking the way that a video game narrator would talk to you as you're kind of learning how to use your skills and stuff, And so I don't know what the hell is going on in the future. What we do know about Alita, we see in episode 3, which is very interesting. Wilf, we see Wilf, who is this guy that's essentially like the second, he's the one that's working with Flynn to help find Alita, but he's in the future. And we see this one scene where he's a child. It's a flashback, and he's with Alita as a child, and they get adopted. And it's in this future where there's this fear of them being contaminated by some kind of virus. And we know that in this future, a lot of humanity has died off too. So they get adopted by these 2 British people that seem like they might be like super conservative or religious. There's something going on there. You don't really know what they're about. And they straight up ask him, because his name is like Wolfgang, when he's about to get adopted. And they say, well, can you change your name to Wilfred? Or Wilfred, I'm sorry. And he does, so he can get adopted with Alita. But that's all we really see about her. But it just opens up all these doors. We know that Wilfred goes and meets with his adopted mother later in episode 3, and she's got one of those robots, and the robot looks like Alita too. So I don't know her significance, but it's interesting that what'd you say her name was? Elise was the doctor? The one that's from Bly Manor.
Oh, Charisse.
Like, she almost kind of seems to have powers, and I know that obviously she's not going to have powers. It's just like advanced technology. But I'm wondering what the fuck, because at one point in episode 3, she makes the floor disappear in this like skyscraper that she's walking in, but then she walks across the air. And then in the very end of the episode, she's questioning this woman that knew Alita, and she's given the woman this, potion or whatever that makes her like bees come after her, and the bees just go all around her, go around Charisse and attack the woman. So it looks like she has these special powers, but obviously it's advanced technology.
She said that like she put in her tea this type of honey that like enrages the bees and it antagonizes them. But yeah, that was such a cool scene. That scene and the one where she's walking with like her colleague and she's basically like, if you mess up again, I'm going to kill you. And I'm going to like basically just take the floor away and whoops, there you go. And then she, and just her line deliveries are so perfect. Tanaya Miller. I'm back on the Tanaya Miller train. Yes. But yeah, I need more Tanaya Miller. She was, I need more of her and I need more of Alita. Because like, yeah, there's, so like the Pickett, the uncle who's like the head of the drug ring, it's like they're trying to make him, and there's a flashback scene with him that's really fucking crazy too.
Love that.
Where he like
episode 3.
Yeah, he like murders an entire like biker gang and crucifies them, like legit crucifies them to make it look like a rival gang did it. Like, wow. But you have, it's like if you have these like cool villainous characters, and then it's like you're paying off like regular mercenaries to go, and there's also like I don't know. It's like, this is why I like the show so far, but I don't love it yet because I need things to come together. There's scenes that I'm like really, I really enjoy when like the sheriff drives by and he stops his car because he sees a coffee cup just floating in midair, and then he realizes that what he's looking at is a coffee cup on top of a cloaked car. Right. Like James Bond Die Another Day style.
Right.
So like there's really cool moments. I love the tech. I love the architecture in the future, and the acting is good. It's 3 episodes now. I need the show to get like kind of more to like push the narrative of the show and explain to me, not with like words, but just explain to me why like things are happening. Like, why is Alita so important? Like you said, like that first episode feels completely disconnected from episodes 2 and 3, which are much more of a 2032 story. And whereas the first episode really makes you think you're going to be watching this futuristic sci-fi show that takes place with way in the future. So I don't know. I'm looking forward to seeing where it goes.
Yeah, as am I, and I hope that you can come back on Comic Books Transformed and talk about it like week by week, like we did Raised by Wolves. There's 8 episodes altogether for the whole season, and I don't know if they're going to take his book and make it into a series. I know that they got a series order. I don't know if that means like that the first season is going to be the book, and then they're going to try to make something new afterwards. They've done that with other things before. Like there was this one show, it was like Pretty Little Lies. I think that was the name of it, or something with lies. Big Little Lies on HBO, and they made the first season into the first book was. The book was made into the first season. There we go. But then they just made up their own story for season 2.
Oh, yeah. They've done things like that before, yeah. Where, like, I get you.
Yeah, so I don't know if, like, this is going to be this ongoing thing or if they're just doing the book and then they're done. But I want to finish listening to the book just so I kind of understand what William Gibson was trying to do. But I would love to keep talking about this with you. I personally like it because I'm a big fan of movies like Children of Men, and there's this one movie I watched that I feel like no one else on this fucking planet has seen, which is called Code 44. Have you heard of that or seen that?
I think I've heard of it. Is that
Yeah.
it?
Like Samantha Morton, that's the one that is on The Walking Dead, and she was right, that actress. She's in
Samantha
Minority.
Morton is the one from Minority Report, right?
Right. So she's in Minority Report, right? Here's a little coincidence. She's in this Code 44 movie with Tim Robbins, and it's in this future that's not too far from our own. And it just, once again, just seems like, oh, it kind of makes sense that this is the future. It's like maybe 20 to 30 years in our future. And it's like, oh, okay. Like, to me, that's the most realistic future I've ever seen in a movie, is this movie Code 44. But I love Children of Men. I love that. I love these sort of believable futures that it's like, this is probably where we're going.
Did you see Rian Johnson's movie Looper?
Yes. That's a good example too.
One of my favorite time travel based movies also. Love that movie.
Yes. The future of Looper, that is a very good example too. I think personally, and this could be my last point before we wrap this up, I kind of like these futuristic movies that are not like apocalyptic, but they're kind of like near apocalyptic. That's what they say in this
Yeah,
quote.
I apocalyptic movies, I feel like there's only so many ways to get to an apocalypse. Like,
right.
It's either a disease or it's post-nuclear fallout, and it's either like roving hordes like in the Mad Max movies, or it's zombies or some zombie-esque monster like I Am Legend. And there's only so many ways you can go about that. Whereas I think you're right. Like, when you look into the future, I think also it really, the more we're describing, when you look into movies like that are futuristic and they're just kind of drab realities, instead of like these hyper stylized like glossy images, like Minority Report, like they're chasing people down back alleys, and like the housing looks very similar, even though like the highways are much more advanced.
Right.
I like movie like Looper didn't feel anything out of, like, nothing about the future felt futuristic, other than like Bruce Willis is sending himself through time to murder people,
right,
to close loops.
Right. It's cool when it's like, yeah, it kind of makes sense. Like, it's not this drastic leap in technology, from where we are right now, So,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm digging this show. I'm going to watch episode 4 next Friday, and I'm hoping I can review it next weekend with you, just so we can plug.
So when does the new episodes come out?
Fridays.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So let's just kind of plug some stuff real quick. So if you guys have not subscribed to Comic Books Transformed, please do. Me and Brian love talking about comic books. We're talking about Andor 2 right now. And then we're probably going to cover some other things. Black Panther's coming out soon. But if you like this show, I bet you like Andor 2. Danny and I are from the Lasser Cast. And like, shit, I've done like a ton of interviews in the past couple of weeks. I just interviewed this author, Megan Stockton, who has this book that's called Ethic, and that kind of feels like a bleary future. You should check out her book. Check out that interview on the Lassercast, Megan Stockton. And then I also have interviewed Lucas Amon, who did this book called Warmth, and he's a filmmaker. His interview is coming out this week on the Lassercast. And then yesterday, I interviewed Tom Holland. Now, I know you comic books fans are probably like, oh, shit, he interviewed Spider-Man. But I mean Tom Holland.
The real Tom Holland.
The first Tom Holland, yes. The director of Child's Play and the writer and director of Fright Night and many things. Had a really fucking awesome interview with him. That should come up on the channel soon, too. And then, Danny, what else you got on the Lassercast?
Well, speaking of interviews, we interviewed David Weiner, the director of In Search of Darkness 1 and 2, In Search of Tomorrow. He has part 3 coming out, which... if this is going up right now, you have until Halloween to go to 80shorrordoc.com and get your pre-order your copy of In Search of Darkness 3. And if you don't have In Search of Darknesses 1 and 2, you can get them in like a 3-pack. And you can support that project at 80shorrordoc.com. Our interview is up on the Lassercast. He's a friend of the channel. Pete and I and Mike from, I always get his, what is it, PC?
Yeah, Pop Culture Man Children.
Pop Culture Man Children. The three of us counted down the top 10, actually the top 23, because we did the last 2 episodes together. But Pete and I did all 8 episodes of Shudder's 101 Scariest Horror Movie Moments. We counted down from 101, which was It Follows, to number 1, which was the Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Spoilers.
Yeah. But you could watch all 8 episodes on the Lacercast. We spend about an hour each episode going through the list, talking about whether we agree with it or not, why the moment is important. I think it's some of our best work on the channel.
Agreed.
And we have Pete's interviewing everyone who's ever mentioned the word horror. All of those interviews are up on the Lacercast as well.
Yes.
I'm reviewing Chucky, new episodes every Wednesday night on USA and Sci-Fi. My reviews come out Thursday. The show is done, but Shudder's Queer for Fear was a 4-part documentary. It was fucking amazing. If you liked horror noir about African Americans in horror and black horror, you will love this. It's a 4-part series. I reviewed all 4 episodes up on the channel. So yeah.
That is a lot of fucking stuff, man. We talk about a lot of things. We review a lot of things. I mentioned Vincenzo Natali. He directed an episode of Cabinet of Curiosities. On Tuesday on the Lacercast, we're going to be talking about Cabinet of Curiosities episodes 1 through 4 that are on Netflix right now. And I think we're also getting writer Gage Greenwood on there for that too. So, subscribe to the Lacercast, subscribe to Comic Books Transformed, and you will always have sexy middle-aged white men talking about stuff that they love. And we love you guys. See y'all.